I'm currently enrolled in a very Marxist high school in San Antonio, and they just...
Do they advertise that way? They say that the premier Marxist high school in San Antonio?
They're like pro-globalism and all that stuff, which is a subscript of Marxism. But anyways, so they constantly ridicule America, and they just villainize our country, and I'm currently a rising senior in that institution. And so I was wondering what your advice is for somebody like me who is trying to champion through such an institution.
Stick to the truth, always. Don't shy away from the truth. Be courageous with the truth. That's the only way.
President Carvalho is a ruthless and fearless truth teller. And that might seem like a relatively simple and straightforward thing for well-raised young people with great parents who are all here with us in the room tonight. But that's in fact very difficult. It's extraordinarily difficult in higher education to be a fearless truth teller. And it's even more difficult the higher you go up the totem pole, the more prestigious the university is, the bigger the endowment is. And Carlos, after getting his PhD at Duke, served at one of America's great elite universities, the University of Chicago. And then he made his way here to Texas, to UT, which, as you know, is just up the street. And some of you will know this, but maybe not everybody will know this. The University of Texas is the wealthiest public university in the world, and it's not even close. The only university in the world that is wealthier than the UT system is Harvard itself, and it's not that far off. So Carlos, my question to you is, why would somebody with tenure, with a distinguished career behind them, working at one of the wealthiest education institutions in all of human history, that seems pretty safe. It seems kind of crazy to give that up. Why did you do it?
Well, thank you for this great introduction, but I think Brent and Lauren, Brent in particular, said it very clearly why I needed to do this. The reality on the ground on our elite institutions is pretty sad. Pretty sad, and I'll not dwell and repeat a lot of the things that Brent already said. I think he hit all the marks of the things that are going wrong in higher education today. But one thing in particular is the lack of attention on undergraduate education. The institutions of higher learning, I see them having three missions. The mission of developing knowledge, curating knowledge, and transmitting knowledge. Very rarely a professor actually creates new knowledge. It's a very difficult thing to do, to create new knowledge. So we have people try, and oftentimes they don't, because it's a very difficult thing to do. And a lot of our effort goes into curating, keeping the knowledge that we have alive, and that's a very important role that universities play. But the third pillar is like, if you're not excelling in that third pillar, really transmitting the knowledge to the students, you're missing the largest portion of the reason for our existence. And throughout my career in big universities, prestigious universities, students were always seen in my colleagues, in my around the faculty lounges as a nuisance. It's like, oh, something you have to deal with, as opposed to being the central reason for our existence. And having the opportunity to interact with the University of Boston from its very beginning, it was clear to me that that pillar of transmission of knowledge and formation of character was the reason for the start of that university. And when I got to interact with the students that were here this past year, it was pretty clear that commitment was not just a slogan, was really a commitment that was being lived upon. And having the opportunity to interact with the students, I think, was so I remember my last day interviewing for this job, which, by the way, I started 2 weeks ago, so forgive me if I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning quite a bit about what's going on. But my last day of the interview, I had to go on stage with Barry Weiss, which again, I don't get interviewed by top journalists very, very often, so it was a little, it was a little off-putting, a little scary. And our community and the students in front of me there, and I got grilled by the students for about 2 hours. We'd ask a lot of interesting questions, a lot of great thoughts. And that day was the day that I said, well, yes, it's risky, yes, I'm giving up this career that I built, but I can now look at myself 10, 15, 20 years from now, look back and regret not trying to build upon that body of students that I saw in front of me. They were just the most impressive group of people at that age that I had a chance to interact with in my university career. And they were fearless. They were asking questions from the position of intellectualism, of trying a moral understanding of the world, and clearly they are innovators, they're builders, they're people, they are optimists, people that are going to be contribute to our country as we move things forward. So that's why.
Great. So let me pick up on that a little bit, and because you talk about the abandonment of undergraduate education by our big universities, but maybe by our small universities as well. And that is definitely one of the problems that we set out to solve with the University of Austin. And when you meet all of the wonderful professors tomorrow, you'll quickly realize that one of the things we very deliberately put a premium on when we hired was teaching excellence. And one of the things that has sometimes gotten in the way of teaching excellence within universities is an over-reliance on tenure as the operating system by which faculty perpetuate themselves within universities. So tenure is not something that maybe all undergraduate students are going to be familiar with, or even high school students, but it's a word that's going to come up a lot in why our university is different to other universities. So maybe you could say something about how we're thinking about tenure, what we're doing differently, and the effect that might have on the university.
So just so everybody knows what tenure in a typical university is that a young professor, somebody finishing their studies, get hired by a university, they are on a probation period, typically, we call tenure track. They are pursuing tenure. And that varies from university to university, from 5 to 10 years, depending on the university. And really, what you need to accomplish in those years is to distinguish yourself in your research. You need to basically show your peers, people in your area of study, that you can contribute to that field at the highest possible level. This sounds very nice, and in a lot of fields that actually is taken very, very seriously, not so much in other fields. But the point being is that at the end of that, you are judged primarily and almost solely on the merits of your research, of your contributions to the field. It's a very circular thing. It's not really thinking about impact to the world, it's really thinking about contributions to your field. And then if granted tenure, that means that now you have a job for life. It's a very unusual thing in American society, the idea that you have a security to then continue to do this until you decide to retire. Nobody can retire you, actually. So there's no sunset clause or anything like that. It is illegal to do that. So that you might say, okay, why that has evolved? Well, that has evolved primarily as I think two good reasons. One was a reason of understanding that as you pursue something very risky, research that actually can be very risky in the sense that it might not work out, right? So you want to open up people for the peaceful mindedness to really pursue risky research to then contribute to our body of knowledge in the best possible way, right? So you're giving them the security to pursue those risks. And the second one was, I guess that's the primary one, the one that matters, right? Well, in some ways that backfired. That actually did not create an environment where pursue risky ideas and research was the actual outcome of it. It was more of a conformity, basically to maintain just a circular thing that got you to win tenure in the first place. Sometimes I like to describe it as a pie eating contest, which your prize is to eat more pie. And you continue. That's exactly so. Sometimes people talk about that in law firms as well. When you're going to partner in a law firm, that's the same sort of idea there. So that actually has created a system that is not working so well right now. Really not working well. We're creating a lot of basically lack of innovation, lack of energy in a faculty body, lack of commitment to undergraduate education. So we're thinking about that differently. We're saying, no, we're not doing that. We're not in creating a new university, you have the opportunity to think everything from the ground up. And that's clearly something that it makes absolutely no sense to replicate that labor model of the current universities. So we need to find a balance of providing the safety for the pursuit of ideas in an environment that is conducive to that, and yet provide the right set of incentives for people to continue to be innovators, drivers, teachers, and contributors to the community. So we're going to have long-term contracts with very clear expectations, and I think they're talking about 5-year contracts, which are already very, very, again, compared to most jobs in America and in the world, those are very generous in some ways, right? But they're needed, again, to create the right environment for ideas to be pursued, for knowledge to be preserved, and again, and for the transmission to knowledge to be effective.
So you are a statistician, and so you are, I think, better than anybody in our company because what you have worked on in the past is analyzing the effect of policies. And as Carlos mentioned very briefly, the scholarship that our faculty do does need to have an element of public interest in it. So it has to be something that it has some good broadly to society, at least some of it. And as a statistician, I think sometimes I remember when you were first mooted as being appointed. I have my door is always open to students for 1 hour every day. They can come in. It's a very bad idea, but they can come and complain about anything, anytime, 1 hour a day. And they come in and said, "Oh, are you sure a statistician is going to get this Western civilization thing and Plato and Aristotle and all this?" I say, "Trust me, you're not going to have a problem with Carlos." But you are a statistician, and yet you seem to have a fundamental love of and grasp of why philosophy, history, literature, why these things are so absolutely necessary, and why what we call, as Brent alluded to, intellectual foundations, why that needs to have such a preponderance in the humanities. Of course, STEM is very challenging as well, and we do insist that every student here takes STEM, because STEM is part of being a well-rounded student. But what is it about you, and you, as I said, you are Brazilian, I know your father was in the military, you choose to live in America, you chose this country. What is it about knowing the past and having a grasp of our civilization that is important to you, and why does that need to be at the heart of what we offer at UATX?
There's a two-part answer to that. I think the first one, yes, I'm a statistician trained in economics and machine learning, so it's a mix of a lot of technical things. But I was educated primarily in economics at first in my undergraduate, and I've always been very interested in the study of history in particular. Not so much philosophy, mostly history. But the way in which I came to the realization that the pure empiricism that was embedded in my work, in my research, or thinking about just numerical quantification of pros and cons of a certain decision, for example. Should we raise the minimum wage, yes or no? Well, let's think about very carefully about the pros and cons associated with that and weigh that and try to make a decision. The reality is that none of those decisions at the end of the day are values-free. So you might want to convince yourself that there's a scientific way to make those decisions in society and come up with a notion and a way to try to create as best as you can a scientific understanding of the decision. But at the end of the day, even with the same scientific understanding, two different people might look at that evidence and still, because they're different values, a different morality, might actually come up with different decisions. So in that sense, you realize that, well, if you don't somehow think about the value system and the sort of historical experiences in the context of that decision, in context of that empiricism, things can go pretty wrong. Things can go pretty in bad directions and create all sorts of interesting conflict, right? So, therefore, it's important to look back and think about the set of principles, the set of societal arrangements, the set of historical precedents and values that they are conducive to human flourishing. They are conducive to help us make those decisions. They are heavily informed these days by the empiricism that we have. So without that, the sort of value-free system that a lot of parts of our society tries to push is very dangerous, very, very dangerous. It's nihilistic, and I think creates and doesn't appreciate the greatest things that we have to learn from the past. So I see UATX as a place where you're combining these two amazing forces, the forces that created American civilization. This is this pinnacle of the West, through all its history and philosophical underpinning and advancements, with this heavy empiricism and creativity and technology that we have and we're in the forefront of, right? So the combination of those two forces, it's unstoppable. And I think that will create not only UATX as the next great institution of our country, of Texas in particular, but also to help, be this beacon to push the world forward.
Students, I should say, there is a microphone right here, and I'm going to ask maybe one or two questions more of Carlos, but then if you're starting to think about something that you want to ask, when I let you know, then please start thinking about that so you can line up at that microphone and then have your questions ready to ask, because we'll leave plenty of time to do that, because we want you to be able to talk directly to us. About what you're interested in the university. But I want to pick up a little bit on what you said just then, and we use the word values, and values it might give some people PTSD, so sometimes thrown around a little bit too much, but values are very, very important. And one of the things I would say that gets into the real nuance of what we're trying to do is this question of values. I made comment at the beginning, here you have an Australian and a Brazilian telling you about America's next greatest university. But the serious side to that is to ask the question, should universities act in the national interest? That's a question for everybody to consider, not just for our president. We have a giant American flag hanging as the centerpiece in our atrium. When I go and speak to donors, and when I go around the country recruiting, I usually say three things about our students, and I am taking a stab in the dark and saying I think it's going to hold true for all of our future students in the room as well. And I say that the first of those common denominators of a UATX student is patriotism. I think students can argue about what different things mean. We have different take on different strands of political philosophy, but there is no real fundamental disagreement that America is a force for good. The second thing I say is that our students are very well ordered, so they typically, they may have big dreams, but they want to work on practical things that can improve their families, their communities, their state, maybe their country as well. But they think practically, they're well ordered. And the third thing that I say, as a result of those two things, is that they tend to be very well informed. So, and I get the same impression going and talking to parents here tonight. You are not typically people who immediately woke up after October 7 and said, oh, it turns out American higher education is bad. I think most of you are people who've been having this discussion at your dinner table for a lot longer. And I wanted to share that, A, because it's held true for the last 3 years, meeting incoming UATX students, but B, to ask our president the question, what is values neutrality? Is there such a thing? Can a university be patriotic? Should it act in the national interest? Or do we have to keep ourselves clean of flag and blood and soil? What do you think about that?
So, born Brazilian, proud American now, so I can say that. No, the flag is non-negotiable in my view. The choice that I made as a young adult to move to the U.S. was a choice informed by the greatness of this nation. The fact that growing up, by the way, a little joke in my household, my dad was in the military in Brazil, and I joke, he taught me 3 things in life: to learn math, learn languages, and always watch out for the communists. He saw red everywhere he looked. The first 2 clearly served me very well in life. Speaking English was helpful when I moved to the U.S. I was getting a PhD in mathematics and statistics, so that was also very helpful. And the third one turns out to be very helpful too. No, not,
Especially in higher education.
Exactly. Jokes aside, it's just a privilege that I was given to be able to come, be accepted in the country as a citizen now, grow my family here, have my children here, and understanding that we say this phrase a lot, like, oh, we're a good force in the world. It's like almost like, and of course there's disputes and things and times that we're happier and less happy and so on, but overall, the American experiment is just this 250 years now that we're celebrating a lot these days. It's just an amazing, amazing thing. If if you come here, you're going to study very carefully the founding, very carefully those ideas, where those ideas were deriving and being brewed in the consciousness of the West for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and they got to a point of this incredible formation in 1776. That then again provide this run of human flourishing that is unmatched anywhere in the world, unmatched. So, yeah, being patriotic, being protective of the American experiment is being protective of humanity, is pushing humanity forward. The best thing you can do to help the world is to help us to continue this journey on the American experiment. I truly believe that, and I'm a super happy warrior in that mission.
Thank you, Happy Warrior. Okay, so students, if you have any questions, you can see the microphone at the front. Please don't be shy. We do have a rule. Parents, you're welcome to ask a question, but only after we give the first right of reply to a student. And that goes for any event that you ever attend at the university. It doesn't matter who's speaking. So the student needs to ask the first question. If a student doesn't want to, then we can pass to anyone else. But I see some movement over here. Do you want to find the microphone up here?
My name is Seth Sanders. I'm from DC. I'm an incoming freshman at the University of Austin. I had a question for you, sir. You said that you were a statistician, sorry. I've recently had the pleasure of learning an amount of applied statistics in the workplace. I was curious if you plan, and if so, how you plan on using your knowledge of statistics to better and develop the school. And if you plan to, are there, and if so, what are the things that students can do or should be paying attention to or taking record of to help the school develop?
So I'm a big believer in quantitative decision making. So again, when I mentioned the fact that values are of course very important, and we were talking about some of the values of the institution that we have here, right? But at the end of the day, to be an effective decision maker, you need to get informed properly, appropriately about the situation on the ground that you're trying to deal with. So I think we have to develop in our institution a very quantitative mindset of understanding what works, understanding what doesn't work, iterate, validate our assumptions in our sort of attempts to make, from a product perspective, a better product, right? So I think that's part of our culture of innovation. That's going to be part of our commitment to build a great university, is to be very data-driven in our decision-making. So that's absolutely something that I'm committed to do. Now, when you ask about students, I think part of what you can do to help, and we are already, some of the freshmen here will tell you, some of the now rising sophomores, is that we're building this alongside the students. The students are an big important part of what we're doing, right? So understanding the experience from you, getting the feedback, dealing with that feedback, understanding that we're not here necessarily to please you necessarily. We're here to provide you with the best possible education, but listening, getting that input, getting that data from the students, having an open relationship with the students, as Ben describing here, having his office open, is a commitment of ours. And I think we're going to have a community where students, everybody have their place, but students are an integral part of the communication and the sort of the feedback that we need to improve our product.
Hi, my name's Autumn Files. I'm local from Round Rock, Texas. And I was wondering how, this upstarting unaccredited university, how would that help someone who's interested in going to law school? How would that help them get in? And moreover, why should we choose this versus like Hillsdale or Stanford or something?
That's a fantastic question. I have two great news about this, actually. Just one is of today only. You're correct. We're still unaccredited. It's going to be a couple of years before we get our full accreditation. By the way, this is not something that in my mind, there's any doubt is going to happen. It's just a matter of following the process. There's a rigorous process that we need to follow, and we're following the process rigorously. Just a couple weeks ago, we had visitors from both the Texas accreditation body, that's called the Higher Education Coordinating Board, and our independent accreditor. Those visits went very well. They're very happy with our progress. They are seeing what our commitment to our students, to our development as an institution. So things are going very well there. But you're correct that it's not done until the first class graduates. At that moment, once we get accredited, everybody that was in the program before, all their degrees get accredited automatically. So in some ways, this is something that once we get it, everybody in the past gets it as well. So maybe there's a very brief period of time that maybe a student coming out, applying to law school, the law school might not recognize yet their degree because we're not accredited. So that's a momentary risk, right? We are working with some law schools as we speak to create an understanding between them and us. We're trying to show them what we're doing in order to tell them, listen, trust us, we actually are doing something very serious. Accept our students in this brief moment where we're going to still have this limbo position of non-accredited. And just this week, we have the first memorandum of understanding being produced between us and I think Pepperdine. Don't quote me on this officially. This is something that we're working on, but that's in the pipeline. We're really trying this, and we're going to be doing this with other law schools as well. On top of it, just to give you a sense of the type of exposure to a law education you're potentially going to get with us, just today we're closing a relationship with a circuit judge. So that's like, the courts right below the Supreme Court, right? That's going to be teaching a class for us next fall. So we're going to have a circuit judge sitting, teaching freshmen and sophomore. And I asked him, "Are you sure you understand these are freshmen and sophomore?" And he's like, the younger the better. He really wanted to be involved with us in the very, very early days of our existence. So I think that kind of relationship, and we have plans for a pre-law degree that's going to be heavy influenced by actual practitioners in the field, judges, lawyers, and so on. So I think, maybe a little bit of risk there momentarily on the limbo years, but overall, I think we are going to be working very hard to get you to the law school that you would like to go to.
So given that you're a statistician, how do you plan to change Austin in the STEM direction, and what do you plan to do to achieve your goal?
So not much change. Is really the plans were in place as I arrived were good plans. We have a very strong commitment to STEM education, primarily in the areas of computer science and AI. I think that's going to be our first sort of area of investment. Naturally, given the sequence of our degree, right, the first year was very focused on creating that Western Civ core experience, which I think we've done incredibly well already in the first year. But as students progress in their career, yes, we need to develop now these other verticals. And the CS1 is one that we're working very hard as we speak to develop. And what we're trying to do that is different, that is, again, potentially innovative, is to be directly very close to industry. So we're trying to build a combination of professors and industry practitioners that are committed to help us directly. Companies are going to be committed to help us directly. So hopefully something that is going to be more adaptive to the pace of change that we see in the real world right now. I think in particular, the world of CS and AI is something that is given the speed in which things are moving. Just trying to create something very academic at this point might be a mistake. We need to be very adaptive, very fast, very innovative. And that's, again, the connection to industry might be in my mind, the answer to that. So pretty bullish on what we're building there. I'm also pretty bullish in the way technology will help in that space. I think by being a startup, we have the ability to quickly use technologies that others will have a harder time, will take longer to bring that to bear. So again, as an example of it, I don't know if you're from Austin, you might have heard about this thing called Gauntlet AI. Okay, so that's a 10-week program that has been created last year that puts people through the gauntlet of learning CS and AI tools in 10 weeks, where what they expected apparently to work 1,000 hours. So, a little intense, right? But what's intense but interesting about that is that the idea that you can try to create incredibly effective learning experience in a very short period of time. And when you think about experience of college, 4 years, why 4 years? Well, it's because it is done that way and there's an expectation it's done that way. But there's nothing special about 4 years, if you think about it. If we're serious about really challenging you and trying to create a vigorous Navy SEAL of the mind environment, well, for some of you, it makes sense to maybe, let's say, in a 10-week period, embark on a intense gauntlet on a certain area of study. And we're going to be developing, experimenting with ideas like that. The last thing I want is for you to come to Austin and waste your time. Those 4 years, they are supposed to be challenging. They are supposed to be fun, as Brent said, no question, but they are supposed to be challenged. And idleness is not something that we're going to be looking to give you. So fun, excellence, and hard work. And providing you with experience like that is something that I really hope we can accomplish.
And I just might add as well, we are a small university. So if you go and build a gigantic lab for one specific type of engineering, you're kind of stuck with it. The whole point of being small and the whole point of creating a really elite education, all elite units are usually small, so we can pivot quickly where industry and business need us to go.
And let me play out on something that Brent said as well in that Polaris description of his, in the end, right, the third part of our curriculum. I think about that strongly as a bespoke experience. There's going to be a high-touch experience in the sense that we're going to provide you with opportunities that are customized to your interests. Try to find the right match, the right tutors, the right people that can help you in that journey to really get you to launch the moment you're out of here. So even if we don't have a program built yet on an area of study that somebody wants, we'll work really hard to build something that is customized to that individual. So that's our commitment in that part of the curriculum.
I'm Beatrice. I'm from Spring, Texas. And first of all, thank you for talking about everything. I love the whole idea of how we're expanding with computer science and AI and all your things with statistics and your story, so thank you. And also, my question is more simple and more of an overview, but how do you see the growth of UATX within the next 10 years?
So this is a simple question. It's a hard question.
Simple to say it.
I think we need to be very, very careful as we grow. I think it's important to take one step at a time. I think we have clear plans to fill the building that we're in. That's the first, I think, let's say next 5 years, where we have active discussions about how big we want this to be, right? So that's something that there's not a clear agreement, but I think no matter how far we decide to go, the sort of intimate experience of a small institution, an elite institution that is very focused on high talent, it's not negotiable, and therefore I think we're going to be to some degree small. I hope that in the next 4 years we are able to fill up all the sort of like 4-year journey in a way that we're very happy with, providing opportunities for students to study the humanities, the social science, and STEM. Not everything at first, right? There'll be fewer sort of verticals in that. And slowly build those up and being very purposeful about what it is that we have the ability to build something excellent. I think that's the important part. Every step, only take a large step if we can maintain the level of excellency that we expect already of ourselves so far. So that's going to be the answer. I cannot tell you exactly because it's going to be always a judgment call of like, can we do this at the highest possible standards? If yes, then we do it.
Well, think about it this way as well. Nobody is allowed to be anonymous at UATX. It's like the John F. Kennedy question. You have to think about what you're going to do. There's not much point sort of asking the institution all the time, well, what you've got planned for me? You have something bright to offer, you go and do it. No one is anonymous. Everybody is contributing something vital to the team.
My name is Sahana, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. I remember it was mentioned that this university is one of the wealthiest in America. Where is that wealth coming from, and what is it being used for primarily?
I don't know if I would say that I think what Ben said is that University of Texas in Austin,
yes,
the one north
UT.
of us is the one of the west in America. We are not. We are young, scrappy, and hungry. I can promise you that.
There's people going to shake down your parents as they leave.
At the same time, I am very thankful to a very large number of supporters that are making this possible. There are a number of incredible patriotic Americans that understand the need of a creation of a new institution at this moment in time, and that have been very generous with their fortune to give us the opportunity to try to build what we're trying to build. So that's where we are, and I think we have the resources to continue in our journey to build. but we are also an institution that will have to maintain a notion of frugality. Every dollar counts. We're building very carefully. What we're offering right now, which is full scholarship for the foreseeable future, is a very expensive proposition. So it's something that again, we're very thankful to our supporters to allow that. Somebody was telling me earlier that, like, it sounds a little bit too good to be true. You're telling me that to apply, I just need to send my SAT score. Yes. And after that, it's free tuition. Yes. And then I get to go hang out and see talks by Peter Thiel and study hard and have all this great. Yes. It's not too good to be true, but it's really only possible given the support of our network of donors and board members, etc. So thank you to all of them. Some of them, they're here tonight.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rati. I'm a student from Colorado, but my question was, once we graduate from the school, how career ready are we going to be? Like, how are we prepared for that? And like, how socially ready too?
Our objective, our goal, is to get you as career ready the day you graduate than any other university in the country. That is the point of what this sort of like third pillar of our curriculum is to get you ready for whatever you choose to pursue. So how we're thinking about that? Well, one aspect of it is that we're really committed to hands-on learning. We're really committed to opportunities for you to learn, not only in the classroom, but through apprenticeships, through building things, through engaging in the real world, and connecting that engagement in the real world with opportunities in the classroom. So that combination of opportunities in the real world and the serious discussions in the classroom has become a big component of it. So the sort of crafting your journey in a customized way, again, the small environment allow us to do that, is the way we're going to try to do it, right? Provide you with the knowledge, provide you with opportunities, provide you with the network that we're developing that I think is also one of our biggest advantages. A lot of committed people that want to see us succeed, and therefore will be working in partnership with us to help our students in their launch phase.
Hi, I'm Kenley Schlichter from Los Angeles, California, and I was wondering, so I can imagine that your views in, mainstream university are very controversial, and I was just wondering if you've gotten into any trouble with, your previous work in university, and also, I know you're talking about how, like, in general, how university is just so broken and you just couldn't stand it anymore, so you came and joined us at UATX, and we're very grateful to have you. But I'm wondering if there was any like specific moment where something just clicked and you're like, I can't work here anymore. This is broken. I can't do this.
So yes, I got in trouble a lot. So let's not dwell on that. You can find in the newspapers if you want. The moment I broke the camel's back was COVID. It was a moment where I lost a lot of faith in my colleagues. The moment where people that's supposed to be the ones really protecting knowledge, developing knowledge, understanding how knowledge to be deployed, help deployed in society, decided to act in ways that were unjustifiable. And I think we were still living through the consequences of choices that were made during that period of time. And I saw colleagues of mine that I had a lot of respect to that decided to act in a I don't know, it's hard to describe the reason, but let's say in a political way as opposed to in a scientific way in a lot of their public communications and writings and so on. So I think COVID, and not just at UT, that was like a national phenomenon. I think if there was any doubts, that I needed to look for greener pastures, I think COVID was the moment it did it.
Hi, my name is Emerson Lau. I'm an incoming freshman, also from California.
Welcome.
Thank you. My question pertains to what I perceive to be the inseparable link between physical fitness and moral and intellectual fitness. I think that along with the psychological atrophy of my generation, unfortunately, a lot of us lack the desire for athleticism and physical excellence, and also the desire to pursue traditional, conventional, non-subversive beauty. What are your thoughts on that? And if you agree with me, do you plan to try and build a culture surrounding those things at UATX?
I'll let Ben answer that one. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so good news for you. We have a student in our last freshman class. Some of you may know of her. Name's Grace Price. She's from here in Austin. And she comes in, and I got the boys on my team to put some snacks out, make everyone feel welcome. She comes in week 1. She's like, sorry, Ben, that's got to go. No more unhealthy, seed oils are out, all the rest of it. Whatever RFK is saying is in. We're all maha here, okay? So diet, we're already on board. We've already had 1,000 conversations with the caterers, say whatever is unhealthy, get that out of our food. I've talked before about, I said to the young lady here about, ask the Kennedy question, what are you going to do about it? That's exactly what the last class did. So they get themselves out of bed, they organize their own physical fitness regimes. They're down at Barton Springs early in the morning, not everybody, but we actually assessed this somewhat crudely when we did orientation last year, and the average, the physical fitness level of our incoming class was miles higher than you would get at other universities. I think people like you, are pretty plentiful. The other part of the question was on beauty.
I'm just interested in whether you guys think that there has been a drift away from pursuit of conventional, traditional beauty culturally, and if UATX has a lot of people, or if you guys personally are interested in restoring those ideas.
Yeah.
For instance, I was very happy to hear that there was a business casual dress code at this event.
Yeah, well, I would have liked to make it business formal, but no, yeah, it's taken very seriously. That was the area that I worked in before. So I spent 2 years in Washington, D.C., trying to get the staff of congressmen to understand why their bosses needed to understand traditional beauty, if they're going to be. So that was what my background was, and a lot of our students take that extremely seriously. And in just the last speaker event that we had in the regular term, we addressed this topic, that the flight of traditional forms of beauty, the destruction of things that are true and good, and that is a real challenge in modernity. So I think if you come here, even though yes, we are downtown and we're surrounded by steel and glass skyscrapers, and we live in the very fallen world for the sake of beauty, you're going to be in very, very good company, because our class takes this very, very seriously. And by the way, so do all our faculty. This is a very, very important topic for them.
And it's really interesting that some of it comes out naturally, organically in the culture. You're going to walk into our building this week, and you're going to see that even I think the physical aspect of our environment is sort of has a recognition of the importance of having a space that's more traditionally has some traditional features to it, and everybody there is like Ben does dress like this every day actually, so you see him dress like this every day. So and I was just talking to a computer science that might join us, and he's like, you guys dress up a lot there. Is that a requirement? And I'm like, no, it's not a requirement. It's like, because I wear T-shirts every day. I was like, maybe when you're teaching, maybe you shouldn't. But like, sure. I mean, I'm not going to, there's no forced dress code, but organically, the community has developed that. I don't know if anybody said that anything to professors, but I can promise you that the professors here, for some reason, they dress better than other places, and the students follow suit. So it's a very interesting organic phenomenon.
Yeah, I know we have to get through the question, but I'll give you two. Are you coming into this class now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'll give you two little teasers of your orientation. Wasn't supposed to do this, but I'll tell you, okay. One, it is going to be physically demanding. You're going to have to get up early and exercise. Two, a significant portion of the program will tackle the problem of beauty and aesthetics in modernity and what we're doing about it. So I guarantee you'll be very happy.
I'm Will McCollum from Phoenix, Arizona. With your background in analyzing the effects of policy and your very personal recommendation to the governor of Texas, how do you expect to use UATX to influence public policy in Texas or at large?
I don't. So one of the ways in which I find the universities lost their way was to take upon themselves the idea that they have an activist role in society. I think that as an institution, we have to provide the opportunities for researchers and students to engage in those questions if they choose to. But I think the institution should not be a driver of that. That should be really a product of the efforts and research and knowledge pursuits of the community, the students and faculty. So although I have my opinions, and as Ben said, I'm not shy of sharing them, but I share them in a personal sense, not as representing what the institution is trying to do. So we're not a think tank, we are a university, a place where we need to stay away from the heat of partisan moments. But if faculty is called upon, and I hope that whenever they do, because there's an issue in the world that their expertise is needed, I hope they engage with that in the most scientific and objective way possible. I think that's their role, that's the where faculty shines, and avoid the issues that we saw, let's say, in 2020.
Hello, can y'all hear me all right? Yes. My name is Brett. I am from the North Dallas area, and I just have a pretty simple question. So throughout y'all's little FDR-style fireside chat, you made it pretty clear that you believe a university ought to act in a nation's interest and ought to protect the national ideal. I just have some question. Who determines the nation's interest? Because at other universities, as y'all mentioned, we have seen the fall. We have seen the introduction of things such as critical race theory and really just a championing of physical diversity over intellectual diversity. So I'm curious, just simply, how y'all determined what constitutes the nation's interest.
So you asked a very good question, right? So that's something that is in the eye of the beholder to some degree. We don't agree. I mean, if you ask probably a question about, is this in the nation's interest or not, in a lot of different hotter questions of the moment to the crowd here, some people are going to be on one side, some people are going to be on the other side. So our approach to this, and I think the correct approach to this, is to spend real time struggling with the past, with the questions that we had to face throughout the history of Western civilization, and engage with those in a traditional liberal education way, which is to challenge assumptions, to think through them, to really try to understand what that is, but accept that there is some truth to be found, and there are things that were good, unambiguously good, and therefore those we need to protect, we need to defend, we need to objectively propagate. So some of those I think are pretty clear in our system of government, in our ability of self-governance, and you can go through a list of things that I think are pretty clear statements about what works, right? But there are lots of things that we don't know, and it's going to be always a matter of debate, and having that debate very open and honest and objective, leaning on the teachings of the past, I think might be the only way in which you can try to find what is that thing, the national interest. But we have some truths that we almost take as self-evidence at this point, that America is a good thing. We're starting from that sort of premise. I think that's already a big step relative to the other institutions. And I think committing to that and then accepting the fact that what is the best course of action going forward is up for debate, and we need to be thinking very hard about it.
That is exactly what I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Victoria, and I am from Round Rock, Texas, just up north. And I remember that y'all said in your speech that the key for good decision-making was being informed of the situations around you, as well as you said that there's a lot of students outside of the U.S. who are wanting to come over here. So I was wondering, how are the students going to get informed about the world perspective without international students giving into that world perspective? Because I do know that it's really hard to see how the world views each other through an American lens. So what is your plan to overcome that barrier?
I do think that in the future we're going to have international students. I think right now is a regulatory barrier. It's not a choice that we make. I think we definitely desire. I think people like Ben and me came to the U.S. and are I think brought up interesting perspectives and contributions to the country. And I hope that we actually will have a body of international students in the future. So at the moment, part of it you do have professors from a few different places in the world, which helps, I guess. And we're lucky to some extent that it's acquiring knowledge of information from abroad is not as difficult as maybe once was, right? So I see your point of of different perspectives might be useful, and perhaps at this moment we might not have as many of those, given the all-American student body that we have. But I don't think that's necessarily a problem at this point, and I think we given the curriculum, given the type of engagements that we have with knowledge, with questions, it's something that is it's going to be whatever we're lacking momentarily is going to be fixed very soon once we get international students.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Barrett Nelson. I'm coming from Burbank, California, and you guys were talking about expanding and like filling up your guys' building, and I was just wondering what subjects do you guys plan to teach in the future?
So in the very near term, we're building really our humanities component of the curriculum very strongly. I think arts, literature, when I say arts, more like art history, literature, Western civilization type of studies in that regard, ethics and politics. I think civic studies is going to be something that's very core to our mission, understanding American politics, of history. Economics is another field as a priority of ours in the near future. And in the sort of more STEM side, mathematics, applied mathematics, computer science, AI-related things is what's in the near future. That's going to expand, in the arts and literature and humanities side. I can envision, arts becoming a bigger part of our degree. I think the question of beauty was an important one that we do care a lot about. We're having a meeting today of thinking about future plans and what we'll be needing, 5, 10 years in certain directions. In the social sciences, you can expand around economics. There's lots of things like psychology that we don't have it right now, but there's a lot of interesting work in psychology that we hope to bring to our domain. And in the sciences, I think that's going to be a long journey to get to a point where we have the sort of large laboratories that other institutions, currently have. So we're probably going to have to be very smart about picking areas that are achievable given our size and expertise. But there are interesting things happening. For example, Austin has become a place where there's a lot of the development in the drone space and autonomous kind of things in Austin. And we have a relationship with a lot of companies in that space. So we have hopes to maybe have some partnership labs with some companies in town that would allow us students maybe not to have a full-blown engineering degree, but have the ability to really engage in things that are also in the physical world, not just in the world of software, through experimentation and so on. So those are the things that I can see in our near future.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jack Porter. I'm from Lodi, California.
By the way, a lot of Californians and Texans. That's an interesting, great.
California.
Well, okay, I came up here with one question, and then you sort of sparked another one, so I guess both of them are, I think, fairly brief, so I'll try, if that's all right. So with regard to the Founders Scholarship that you offered to the incoming class that will be here this year, you had mentioned something about there being plans to offer that in future years as well.
Yeah, so our commitment right now is that for the class that's here, that's going to be the class just finished their first year, right? That commitment is throughout their graduation day. The class that's coming this year, that commitment is through their graduation day. The class in the third year, I'm not going to say 100%, but that is our hope. We're working really hard to commit resources for that to be our commitment. When that's going to end is to be determined. A lot of it depends on our ability to, support the effort in getting the scholarships that they're needed. We're working really hard for that. I think our hope is that to have that and this potentially be the model until we are fully accredited. We're, clearly demonstrating that we build something excellent, and therefore, maybe at that point in time, we can start having a conversation that's more balanced and not just, but again, I don't think I can tell you with precision when that's going to end or if it's going to end.
I noticed you started out with three degree programs, and I know you had talked about trying to expand that going forward. But what made you decide on those three? Because I remember there was I can't remember exactly, but there was a very history and law one, and there
Economics, politics, history, arts and letters, and STEM.
Yes.
Those are the ones you're talking about?
So yeah, so let me, anyway, a very traditional organization in some ways of universities, like humanities, social sciences, and physical sciences, and things like that, right? Natural science sometimes it's called. So we're not going too far from that general organization of bodies of knowledge in those three buckets, right? And the idea at first is to say, okay, let's do one of each here. Let's build one experience in each one of those general areas of interest. We're still offering one Bachelor of Arts. It's a 1 BA. It's a liberal arts degree. Right? That's what we have right now, which with concentrations potentially in some areas. And the concentrations right now that we have are one in the humanities, one in the sort of like general social sciences, philosophy, politics, and economics, and one in focus on mathematics and CS. That's was just, again, prudent to start small, to start very focused, and then expand once we build it. In some ways, those pillars are core to a lot of other disciplines that naturally will grow out of that. And that's why I think the choice was made in those directions.
Hello, my name is David. I'm from Germany. And I wanted to ask, you mentioned your responsibility to contribute to society in a positive way, contrary to like critical theory, right, which is the opposite. And of course, as a German, I can tell, the horrific historic circumstances under which the critical theory arose. Do you think a university maybe has a responsibility also not to become too integrated into society, but also to rather...
I think I answered before, right? Like that I think we have a responsibility to stay, to some degree, disconnected as an institution from the heat of the moment. I think that's not our role to be saying we should go this way or that way. As an institution. Individuals internally, sure, the debates are going to always be there. But on the other hand, I think like if things are going a certain way or not, studying them and being clear about them, trying to express them, I think in a way to expose what that means is a very important thing. I don't think an activist mentality, an activist stance is ever the role of the university. That's my view.
That's a great question. You could go and find Lauren Rotner, who you heard speaking for, because he can talk to you about the history of the university. So we'll find him, the man who spoke first.
Yeah. For sure.
Hello, my name is Sophia Ruggieri. I'm from outside of Philadelphia. And I was wondering, for other schools already developed and are top universities, a pro of them is that they have really good networking and alumni. They can help you get good internships or jobs. And I was wondering how you plan to bridge that gap for your students.
I think, as I mentioned before, we're incredibly lucky. The network of supporters that have made this project possible are also very committed in helping through partnerships with our students, internships, and job opportunities. I think right now we have, I don't know, Ben, how many of our students are currently either working in an internship this summer with supporters or have been working through the year with supporters? It's like...
So anyone who wants an internship this summer has one. Some people just want to have summer holidays, but anyone who wanted an internship has one now. And we have what we call our talent network. That's something that is under my area, and we can connect you with a whole bunch of people that are just excited about the university and want to help. So it's even better than an alumni network because they're actively plugged in.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lulu Wernick. I'm from Virginia. I was wondering, because UATX is super patriotic and built off of Western values, which is awesome. What do you think attracts international students from Eastern cultures, as two foreigners yourself, to UATX?
The U.S. is the greatest beacon of hope in the world. So they look at us and say, I want to be there. And those are the ones that we're going to get. The ones that understand the value that we offer to the world, and they want to be part of it.
We had, as an outsider, I'll tell you this. We had a marketing meeting about 2 years ago. They were like, maybe we shouldn't go so American because it would put off outsiders. And I said, well, no, everybody who's not American who wants to come to America wants to come for America. So just go harder on America, and then you'll get all the best international people.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Phoenix Strange. I'm from Florida. Short and sweet. Everybody coming to this university is here for the right reasons. I mean, the world is kind of broken, and we can see that. So adding on to the values that your students are bringing, what morals are you planning to help them build and fight the good fight?
Probably more than a 15-second answer, but we want our we want our students to understand what it means to pursue virtue. We say pursue truth, that's maybe something that's a little easier to latch onto, but virtue is something that I think is more deeply rooted in the individual, and it's thinking about it in a more way that's integral to you going out into the world. Like we said, we are neutral in the sense that we don't say Republican, Democrat on campus, but we are not neutral when it comes to character and virtue. So if you want to behave unvirtuously, if you want to behave with bad character, not welcome. It's a value for us, being virtuous, having good character. But come and see me afterwards. I can tell you some of the things we've done the last 12 months with the students that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Max, and I'm from New York. Thank you guys so much for hosting this program. I think this is really exciting. I know you guys are small now, but I wanted to know, what do you anticipate for your growth, specifically in student body, over the next few years? And how will that impact the university's interactions with its students?
So as we said before, I think we want to maintain an intimate relationship with the students, and therefore we need to balance our growth with that ability. So let's say wild success, and in a couple of years we have 1,000 students on campus. I think that's a number that's very manageable still. I think it will allow us to maintain the high-touch environment that we want to have in terms of providing the education that we want to provide. And at that point, we'll see. We'll see if that's working, if we need to be bigger, if we need to be smaller. But I think let's have that number as a target, as a soft target at this point.
Could you repeat the number? Sorry.
1,000 total, 250 a year perhaps.
Hi, I'm Sophia Jasper from Jonestown, Texas. Since UATX has more of a different undergraduate program, how do the Centers of Inquiry in the Polaris program help aid students interested in entrepreneurship?
So in some ways, the Center of Inquiries are separate from that, in the sense that there are different areas of concentration, right? Your core in the humanities, your core in the social sciences, or your core in tech or STEM. I think entrepreneurship is something that's available to all, regardless of where they are, what the area of entrepreneurship that they're looking for. We're developing not only opportunities, they're very an environment that allows you to experiment and try different things and be coached along the way to try to do that. We're also developing programmatic content that will help students in the cycle of forming a company, creating a company, and so on. That's part of we're developing a master's program right now that content is going to be available to all undergraduates. So the master's is going to be another pillar. Some people, they want to come here to join our community at their graduate years, but that content is going to be directly available to our students in the undergraduate body as well.
I'm Joseph Freed from Pennsylvania. Last year at the Life of the Mind event, the Polaris project was pitched as every student attending UATX will work on a company design, succeed or fail. Is that still the plan with the Polaris project?
No. That was, I don't think it was ever the intent, if it was communicated that way. I think Brent talked very clearly about it, is get you ready for what you want to do next. If that is building a company, we're going to try really hard to coach you through that process. If that is getting a job at a big company that exists, we're going to try really hard to get you the internships and the experiences and the knowledge to get you there. If your goal is to just develop your studies further and maybe go to graduate school and so on, we're going to also help you to go purposely through a larger set of courses and write a thesis. I think Polaris is going to be one of those three versions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Kaysan Marinez. I was wondering, you talked earlier about like the average GPA at UATX and also like how you embody excellence. And I was wondering, what does excellence and success mean for a student at UATX?
Well, excellence is in everything they do around here, everything we do, both us as professors and administrators at the university, but also as a student. So excellence in terms of behavior, excellence in terms of pursuing seriously the studies that are put in front of you, excellence in performance in the class. And if you want to just boil down to academic excellence, really is, you're going to be taught, you're going to be required to do some writing, to take some tests, to work really hard. And doing that at the highest possible level is what we expect of you. Of course, some people are going to have different strengths, and some are going to excel more in some classes than others, and we really hope that we'll create an environment that we understand that not everybody gets an A every time. That's how life works. But our other universities have become that. The average grade at UT is A- or something like that. So, it's not really challenging people to the limits that they can. So we want to make sure that a B+ in Austin is celebrated, that you understand that that was actually a reward and not a punishment.
Can I just add very quickly, diligence is self-sacrifice. Excellence is self-sacrifice, diligence, and never making excuses. The top 15 students, when they come to dinner every term with the president, not one of those top 15 students with the top 15 GPAs, not one of them has ever come to my office for that hour during the day to complain. It's common characteristic of excellence is radical responsibility taking. That's what we want for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, I just want to say thank you for sharing your incredible stories. So my name is Aaliyah Popa, and I'm currently enrolled in a very Marxist high school in San Antonio. And
Do they advertise that way? They say that the premier Marxist high school in San Antonio?
they're like pro-globalism and all that stuff, which is a subscript of Marxism. But anyways, so they constantly ridicule America, and they just villainize our country, and I'm currently a rising senior in that institution. And so I was wondering what your advice is for somebody like me who is trying to champion through such an institution.
Stick to the truth, always. Don't shy away from the truth. Be courageous with the truth. That's the only way.
We can give you a flag.
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Caleb, and I'd like to end us on, or at least I hopefully end us on a bit of a different question. What is the University of Austin's greatest weakness? Why should I not come here?
Ooh. Am I able to answer that? I mean,
I have something I can. We have a student now. His name is one of our top students. His name's Sam Indike. He has 7 brothers and sisters, grew up in Northern Virginia, and he was going to join the Space Force. Sky-high SAT, I think, almost perfect SAT coming in. He constantly used to get the question from people that he was moving in circles with. Man, it's unaccredited, you don't know who the professors are going to be, you don't really know what could go wrong because it's a startup. They attract all of these people who are sort of radical truth tellers and bomb throwers and whatnot. That's incredibly risky for someone like you who could go to any school that you want and succeed wildly. What Sam always says when he gets interviewed, whether it's by our own comms team or the Wall Street Journal or whoever it is that wants to tell his story, is it would be incredibly risky not to take the risk. Now, I know that that's not actually kind of what you're getting at with your question, but I use that example because I actually don't really know. Because if you decide to come here, you're already acknowledging risk. You're already acknowledging that the place might have what in traditional academia would be called weaknesses. But our students and faculty are sort of, by their nature, not ignorant of those, but prepared to just carry them because it's kind of worthwhile being here. So Carlos might have an answer for what he genuinely believes is the biggest weakness of the university. I'm sure I have one. I don't spend time dwelling on it, and I don't think that many people here do as well. But
I'll tell you one just in my position, which is requires to make choices and decisions and decide if we're going to do this, that, or the other, in a lot of different dimensions. And I'm going to get it wrong. There's no playbook. There's no recipe to build this. We have our values, we have our mission, we know what we're trying to do, right? But we'll make mistakes. And that established institution, they're very rigid, they're monolithic, so we know what they are in some ways, like you know what you're gonna get. And we are at a phase where we're going to make mistakes, and all I can promise you is that we're going to try really hard to iterate fast and fix them. And I think we have the ability and the speed and the commitment to always try to fix the mistakes that we make, or they are going to happen. And I think that that's something that everybody coming in should be graceful about that and understand that, yeah, we're kind of flying the plane as we're building it, building the plane as we fly it. I don't know what to say, something like that. And yeah, but we're mistakes will be made, but we'll fix them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, students.